Freshman year at university in an East Coast town with autumn smelling of dry leaves and takeout coffee. 3 months ago, my biggest worry was passing calculus at 8 in the morning. Then the school assigned me a roommate, Wesley, and from there, everything veered onto a different track, almost silently and irreversibly. On move-in day, I arrived early. Room 312 had 2 single beds, 2 desks, a window overlooking the football field. I stacked books on the shelf, trying to act like I belonged here. When the sound of suitcase wheels grinding on the hallway floor came, my heart skipped a beat, a kind of anticipation mixed with defense. Wesley walked in, tall, broad shoulders, white t-shirt, dark blonde hair slightly messy, smoke-colored eyes. A calm smile like he knew how to stand at the center of any room. We shook hands, brief. Levi, right? Yeah. You're Wesley. Yeah. Nice to room together. FYI, I'm straight as a ruler, he joked. I laughed along, even though no one asked him to declare that. The words fell to the floor, lying there like an invisible chalk line. That first night, we chatted in fill-in-the-blank style. Hometowns, majors, music. He talked about high school football, quick flings, overnight drives to Maine to see the winter sea. I nodded, adding a few words here and there, the rest spent observing. The way he took off his watch, his jaw moving when he bit into cold pizza. I was used to keeping secrets like a reflex. Where I grew up, different often came with lingering stares. Here, people hung rainbow flags on balconies, but my body still remembered the lesson of silence. So the straight as a ruler line, though a joke, became a small, safe wall. Fine, I thought, walls sometimes hurt less. The first weeks, parallel lives. He got up early to run. I brewed coffee so strong the spoon almost stood up. Friday nights, he went to parties. I worked extra at the library, then watched old movies. But between those 2 straight lines, there were intersections. He added a sugar packet to my forgotten coffee. I hung up his jacket he left on the chair. Gestures as small as fingernails but echoing long. One night, power outage. The whole hall dimmed in darkness. We sat on the floor, light flickering from phone screens. Wesley talked about his summer job at camp, about a kid afraid of water who only went in the lake if someone held his hand. I shared the first time I realized I liked boys. In the gym, smelling of sweat, watching a friend smile and my heartbeat skipping. The silence after wasn't heavy. It was a bit thicker than air. Thanks for sharing, Wesley said softly. No punchline followed. Just a strange peace, like an unnamed pact. From then on, everything stayed the same and wasn't. He still mentioned girls from parties, but sometimes his voice trailed off. His gaze lingered longer than normal when seeing 2 guys holding hands on the quad, then quickly turned away. One late night, cold wind smell on his coat, he sat on the edge of my bed and blurted, "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" Then laughed it off himself. I nodded even though the question didn't demand an answer. I started hearing my name in his voice, lighter at the end. I memorized trivial details. The small comma-shaped scar on his finger, the song he hummed while studying, the way he tilted his head to hide a smile. I both liked and hated it, like stepping onto thin ice and pretending not to hear the cracks. Early December, first snow fell like powdered sugar. Wesley didn't go to the party. We sat watching a muted football game. Wind through the door cracks became distorted background music. "Levi," he called. I turned. The distance between beds shortened to a few breaths. "Have you ever thought? There are things once said you can't take back?" His eyes held mine. I heard my heart pounding like trying to escape and stay at once. I nodded. "Yeah, there are," I said. Wesley exhaled, long and slow. Outside, snow thickened, like the city was being rewritten. At that moment, I didn't know it was the opening, to unnamed longing, to hurts without shape yet, and to the question I'd have to answer with all the scant courage I possessed. The next day, like any other, classes, library, wet snowshoes. But amid the ordinary, I felt a fine, invisible thread taut between me and Wesley. Not dramatic like TV. It was quiet, steady, but weighted. I knew that was dangerous for someone used to living safely like me. Sunday, I was typing a half-done philosophy essay when Wesley spun his chair toward me. "Wanna go out? Get hot cocoa. The city looks beautiful in snow." The way he said it like the answer was already yes. We walked down the main street near campus. Trees wore thin ice coats. Christmas lights on porches made snow glow in golden orange streaks. Breath fogged. Wesley handed me the cup. "Try it. They add cinnamon here." Our fingers brushed lightly, but my body reacted like a small electric spark. He didn't pull away, just looked at me a beat longer than usual, then smiled. "Hot, watch out." In the cafe, speakers played old music, dark wood tables with scratches telling stories of other winters. We talked about unfinished things. What parents expected, fear of failure, feeling out of sync in crowds. Wesley propped his chin, looking outside, said softly, "I'm tired of playing some role, like reading lines someone else wrote." "You can rewrite it," I replied. I didn't dare ask what the role was, but the question was in my eyes. He glanced at me, gaze warm and uneasy at once, then looked away. That evening, we returned to the dorm when it was nearly quiet. Hall lights pale yellow. I hung my coat, heard my heart loud enough I thought Wesley would hear. He stood by the window, silhouette against the snow outside, said without turning, "Levi, if someone spent their life telling themselves they're straight, but lately keeps thinking about a roommate." He paused, soft laugh at the word stumbling. "Then what is that person?" No lecture prepared me for that moment. I stepped closer, enough to see his breath fog the glass. "Maybe just someone honest with their feelings," I said, my voice calmer than the real emotions. Wesley turned, distance between us short as a choice. "I'm scared," he confessed. "Not of others, but of myself. Of things I said loudly, things I was sure of." "I'm scared too," I replied, lightly enough the words almost dissolved in air. "But I'm here." He laughed, slight tremble. "You always say things that make it hard to pretend." That night, no movie kiss or swelling music. Just two boys sitting side by side on the narrow bed, shoulders touching, silent for a while. But that silence had a clear shape. It was something beginning. The days after, everything shifted in small details. Wesley mentioned girls less. He placed a hand on my shoulder, squeezing through the narrow space between desks. A normal touch that wasn't normal to me. Late study nights, he leaned head against wall, eyes half closed, asked, "Have you ever liked someone so much you hate liking them?" I smiled, looking down at blurring lines. "Doing that now." One Friday night, heavy snow, dorm empty as people partied. Wesley played a slow playlist, desk lamp casting the room in soft gold. He sat on the floor, leaning against my bed, extended hand toward me without words. I placed mine in it, heard both hearts blend with the old radiator's wheeze. "Levi," he whispered, like testing a familiar yet new word. "I'm not sure who I am, but I'm sure I think about you more than normal." I smiled, eyes stinging without hiding. "I think about you in a not normal way too." He looked long, then gently touched his forehead to mine. "No rus, no naming." Just two once insistent parallel lines silently bending toward each other. But beautiful things rarely sail smoothly. Next morning, door knock intruded our small world. 3 of Wesley's friends burst in, smelling of beer and loud laughs. "Bro, party tonight." "Coming." One slapped his shoulder hard. "Don't disappear like lately. Girls asking about you." I saw Wesley freeze half a second, only enough for someone watching intently like me to notice. He switched to familiar mode. Half smile, careless shrug. "Yeah, probably. See you tonight." After the door closed, room quiet again. He avoided my gaze, twisted the rubber ring on his wrist. "Sorry," he said low. "Sometimes it's easier being the old version of me." "You don't owe me an apology," I replied, though something sank in my chest. "Just don't disappear from yourself." Wesley nodded, but he still went that night. I stayed in the room, computer light on empty hands. I knew self-discovery journeys weren't straight like Google Maps. They twisted, sometimes looping back to familiar streets just from fear of turning. But knowing was one thing. Sitting and waiting was another. Around midnight, door opened softly. Wesley entered, cold and cigarette smoke mixed with someone else's perfume. He stood there, a bit drunk, but eyes oddly sober. "I left the party midway," he said, voice hoarse, "because amid the loud music, what I thought of was this room, and you." He sat before me, no audience, no role, just fatigue and budding resolve. "Levi, I'm not sure what the future looks like, but tonight I want to be honest with what I want." Outside, snow still fell. In room 312, I understood we stood on the thin edge between longing and hurt, where a small step could redirect the whole winter. I didn't answer right away. Some moments, if spoken hastily, words won't catch up to what's happening inside. Wesley looked at me, those eyes without the half-real, half-acted confidence I was used to in halls. Just a guy trembling from honesty. "I want to be close to you," he said softly. "No labels. Just close." I nodded. Not because I was braver, but because I was tired of pretending I didn't want that. We sat side by side on the bed like before, but the air different. I heard wind hitting the window clearly, snowplow passing below. Wesley sought my hand like it was familiar long ago, then soft laugh at himself. "Weird," he said, touching someone's hand and heart racing like a final exam. "Worse, no extra credit," I teased, voice shakier than intended. We sat like that long. Not the rushed kind of flash romances, but something intimate that you fear handling roughly will break it. I leaned head on his shoulder. Wesley drew a long breath, like someone emerging from cold water. Then he gently touched his lips to my hair. It wasn't a kiss proper, just an awkward gesture of someone learning a new language. But to me, the world tilted a bit. The old room with clunking heater suddenly became center of a different map. We said nothing more that night. As lights out, I heard Wesley whisper somewhere in darkness, "Thanks for being here." The weeks after flowed between classes, assignments, and something unnamed yet present. We weren't public, nor dramatically secret. It was like a small lamp in the palm. Anyone looking close would see, most passersby just background glow. Wesley changed gradually in tiny ways. He laughed big less to cover confusion. When friends joked about what real men should be, he didn't join anymore. One afternoon, after gym, he sat beside me on campus lawn, sweat still on collar. "They asked if I'm dating anyone," he said. I said not sure, and suddenly felt lighter. Because first time not picking the right answer for others? I asked. "Yeah," he smiled. "And because in my head there's a specific person." My heart reacted before reason interfered. I pretended to glance at students throwing snow, but my hand found his coat edge, tugged lightly. A small signal only we understood. Wesley smiled, eyes serious in brief unseen moment. But life wasn't all easy afternoons. One evening, our department had a small event. Hall bright, loud music, cheap perfume mixed with popcorn butter. I went with friends, Wesley promised later. When I stepped to hallway for air, I saw him with two old football buddies. They joked in a way I thought left in high school, half mocking, half challenging about real men. One slapped Wesley's back. "Heard you're less with girls lately." "Don't tell me." From afar, I saw Wesley's shoulders tense. He laughed, the laugh I hated most, like a mask handed back in place. "Busy, that's all," he replied, focusing on studies and room stuff. Nothing wrong in those words, but it still hit like a small stone on my softest spot. We walked back after, silent long enough for snow to squeak under shoes. Wesley spoke first. "When they said that, I panicked," he confessed. "Not ashamed of us, but I'm not used to the world seeing me different." "I get it," I said truly, but that understanding came with a new scratch. "Just sometimes I feel like I'm behind a door you haven't dared open yet." Wesley stopped under pale yellow lamp. Snow fell slow like someone shaking a snow globe. "I don't want you to feel hidden," he said, voice firm. "I just want to learn to do this right. Not to challenge anyone, but for myself." Then we learn together, I replied. Simple words, but saying them, I felt something in me loosen. That night, as we lay on parallel beds, Wesley called softly, Levi. Who I call myself doesn't matter as much as knowing who I'm heading toward, he said, then laughed at sounding too serious. That sounds like cheap philosophy, huh? Worse than cheap philosophy, I replied. Like motivational emails in student counseling. We laughed together in darkness, and that laugh made room 312 suddenly bigger. One March afternoon, city thawed. Water dripped from roofs to clear puddles on sidewalks. Wesley and I sat on library steps, rare sun like a reward. Levi, he said, suddenly serious, I want to introduce you to my sister when she visits this weekend. I turned to look at him. No long speech needed, that sentence carried a whole decision. You sure? I asked. No, he said honestly. But I want to, and sometimes wanting is enough to start. I said nothing. I just took his hand under the steps, where no one saw, and for the first time, instead of panic, I felt the future not as foggy doors but a real path, bumpy, but open. That evening, back in room, Wesley placed a note on my desk. His handwriting slanted like someone running yet wanting neat. I don't know where I am on the map of sexuality or labels, he wrote, but I know this. If there's any straight line in my life, it's leading me toward you. I read and had to sit still for my heart to catch rhythm. When I looked up, Wesley stood at door, awaiting unnamed verdict.
I åkt över.
No words, no philosophy. I just hugged him. Tight enough for him to know that despite world's definitions, we were here, in the small room with 2 beds and window to football field. We'll get lost, I said into his shoulder. But we'll get lost together. I felt Wesley nod, his breath on my neck, warm and trembling. And for the first time, thought of hurt didn't scare me that much, because the longing here was greater. Our story didn't have a clear name yet. But sometimes the unnamed is the realest. Weekend, Wesley's sister came. Name May, 16, curly hair tied high, mischievous eyes of someone seeing more than they say. We met at burger joint near campus gate. Wesley a bit tense, rare enough to notice. So you're Levi? May smiled, extended hand. The one he mentions in vague texts. Wesley startled. I don't. You do, she interrupted, calmly biting fries. You just don't know you're mentioning. In what way? I laughed, atmosphere eased. Talk flowed to safe topics. School, movies, summer plans. But a moment, May tilted head at Wesley. Then me, eyes much softer. You okay? She asked, brief. Wesley exhaled. Learning to be. May didn't ask more. She just nodded like accomplices. At goodbye, she hugged Wesley long. Then to me, keep him eating enough, and help him not over-serious himself, okay? I'll try, I said. I wasn't sure what I promised. Just knew I wanted to be there for him in every ordinary sense of there. April came with persistent spring rain. New grass up in dorm backyard. Life suddenly scented damp earth. We entered final season. Time coffee became religion and sleep a privilege. One group study night in library, Wesley texted. Come out a bit? Back porch. I closed book, heart quick when stepping to drizzle. He stood there, hands in hoodie pockets, hair wet speckled. Just called Dad, he said, voice calm signaling opposite. Good. He shook then nodded head, unsure direction. He asked about dating. I said, trying to understand myself. He silent long. Then, I may not understand, but I'm still your dad. He smiled, but eyes wet unrelated to rain.
I stod beside under narov pork.
We didn't touch, not from fear seen, but some moments need space to breathe. I just said, sounds like a decent start. Yeah, he replied. I thought everything would collapse if not script. But turns out. He looked at rain falling silver streaks before lights. Sometimes new script is better. I smiled. We're 2 lost philosophy majors. At least thesis topics, Wesley said. And first time I saw him cry calmly. No shame, no avoidance. I extended hand. He interlaced, natural as rehearsed years yet never staged. But hard things didn't need rain to arrive. One evening, when I returned, Wesley sat on his bed, phone screen lit, face taut. I recognized that silence, sharp-edged. "What's up?" I asked, sat bed edge. He showed old friends group chat. Mean jokes? Words tossed easy as scraps, aimed at guesses about his roommate. "Know my name, but enough to know." "Just words," Wesley said, trying light. "But I hate their thoughts suddenly having voice in my head." Carefully, "Sorry, I'm the excuse for them." Wesley looked up sharp.
No.
"Don't say that. You're not excuse for anything bad." He paused, slow. "If anything, you're why I don't run back to old shell." I felt my heart warm slowly, like old heater taking time but glowing. "So let me make cocoa?" I asked, pulling us to specifics. "Secret recipe. More cocoa than sugar, plus self-esteem dash." Wesley laughed, hands loosening tension. When I returned with hot cups, he said, "I don't want life controlled by people not there when I fall." "You are." I didn't reply with philosophy. I just sat beside, let my shoulder be where he leaned without notice. End of semester like familiar storm. We buried in work, ate cup noodles at odd hours, notes multicolored to fool order. One night I dozed on book stack. Woke, blanket neatly over shoulders, lights dimmed. Wesley slept opposite, facing me, breaths even. I realized, loving someone sometimes looks exactly like this. Someone turning off lights when you're too tired to know you need dark. When last exam ended, campus erupted cheers. Summer neared, dorm emptying, we faced lingering question. Summer where? What are we without shared room 312? That night, we sat under elm tree behind library. Wind carried river smell. Wesley first. "Summer, I go home for job." He looked straight, no elsewhere. "I don't want this us only because same room. So we try existing outside that room," I said, answer easy surprising me. "No bows. Just not pretend it never happened." Wesley nodded, smiled at flashing thought. "I introduced as straight as ruler to you, remember?" "Remember," I teased. "Rulers sometimes bend from heat." "Yeah, slow. Turns out I was forcing into ruler not for me." We silent long but not tense. Like step back to view half-painted picture. I leaned head on shoulder, not thinking passers-by. World didn't vanish, just less scary. Even summer apart, Wesley soft. "I choose you," not grand statement, like picking warmest coat when cold. I laughed in throat, eyes stinging softly. "So I'll keep marshmallows bag for cocoa company." We sat till stadium lights dimmed. City curled into night. No fireworks or music. Just two freshman guys, old enough to know pain possible, still foolish enough to accept for real love. And I realized, our story wasn't Wesley not straight, or me new from start. It was two learning to stand for selves, and luckily, happily, those sides next each other. Summer would test us. Distance ask hard questions. But that night under elm, I stopped fearing unknown. Because scariest not loving a guy, but living life without daring love in truest self way. Morning after winter break, sky gray like paper waiting last sentence. Dorm sparse. Halls echoed rolling suitcases and hasty doors. I returned to 312 early, missing window to field, and missing Wesley in way I tried not naming. Door open. Wesley looked up from chair, dark hoodie, eyes with sleep-deprived circles. In brief moment, I saw unhidden relief. Then he smiled, familiar but with small crack. "Hey, welcome home," he said. Word home lingered longer imagined. We unpacked, chatter pieced. Late train, snow-jammed wheels, his mom sent more cookies. But undercurrent there, clashing silences. I knew something shifted after snow night. Night said can't take back, hung like unswitched bulb. That evening, we cooked noodles in tiny pan but used electric pot. Steam fogged glasses. Wesley leaned shoulder on wall, looked longer than needed. Levi, soft, voice deeper. I thought a lot over break. A lot. I set chopsticks down. Heart did strange, raced up, anchored self. About what? About me. About how I see things. Especially you. Room narrow, suddenly wide as empty church. Time slow, heard heater clack in walls. I kept telling myself I'm straight. Easy. Ruler, like I joked. He smiled without joy. But you entered my life very loud, though you whisper. And I realized I look at you longer than friends. Feel relieved near you. Jealous when others make you laugh. Hate admitting, but pause, dry swallow. I'm not as straight as I thought. Words fell between, didn't shatter. Opened. I exhaled, unaware, held long. No fireworks. Just old creaky door finally cracking. Cold wind in with light. Wesley. Whisper. You don't need label yourself right now.
No.
But need honest with you. I sent mixed signals. Said things making you think I'm far while closing in. Hand to hair, confusion bare. If I hurt you, you did. True, then softened. But I hurt self too. From fear. Guessing for you. Not brave enough, ask direct. We looked like learning newly found language. Wesley stepped. Distance to warm breath. So, now what? Asked, voice small secret. I soft laugh. At all tension, nights imagining worst. Start by sitting, said, pulled to bed. Let hearts speak slow enough here. We talked till heater warmth cocooned room. Wesley on shadows expectations. Friends, family, harmless jokes sharp as tiny knives. Didn't say fear, but in every pause. I thought not fitting box, I'd lose everyone, said. But thought losing you, and, scarier. I'm no saint, no answer his questions. Just Levi learning love quietly, now learning loved back. Touched fingertip to hand back. Small gesture, honest. We don't choose box tonight, said. Just choose truth. Wesley squeezed hand. No soundtrack, no cinematic. Just two freshmen, room 312 to field, naming long existing. Days after not all sun. Reality showed. Friends' texts, curious questions, uninvited insecurity. Wesley sometimes shrank, familiar old coat. What if everything changes? I sometimes pushed away, fearing fragility seen too clear. But amid, we learned simple. Say miss you, when miss, apologize when hurt, laugh failing 8 a.m. presentation. Sat empty bleachers, shared scarf, watched team practice late snow. Wesley leaned head on shoulder lightly, like checking world collapse. Didn't, just quiet a while. One night soft, don't know future looks, but no want enter it with you if you want. I looked window, dorm lights like distant heartbeats, then back. I want, replied, no extras. Our story would change shapes time, like cities change signs, people change gates. But some clear. Turns out guy I thought straight as ruler carried curves doubt, longing, slow courage. And amid youth chaos, we found each not for perfect, but honest. That night, hall lights last off, wind humming outside, Wesley whisper. Thanks for here. I held hand in dark. We're here, corrected. Not alone, not pretend. Just us, Levi and Wesley, learning name selves right, call each with deserved gentleness. Outside, snow added thin layer. City unchanged, but story changed. And I knew, from that moment, whatever winding road ahead, I wouldn't walk invisible anymore.